Well, thank you very much indeed. And at least when we had that photograph in November 2014, I was young. So I might have been pale and male, but at least I wasn't stale at the same time. So that was helpful. It's just 22 months ago since the words Northern Powerhouse were spoken for the first time by George Osborne. Two words that have kick-started a sustained and determined effort by government to do what successive governments have found so difficult to achieve. And that to deliver a northern economy that once again is a proud powerhouse, not just in Britain, but across the globe as well. And it's absolutely right, I think, to pick up those international points of a global northern economy, looking at the sectors that we have to be able to say that you're only going to be powerful if we're trading with the rest of the world. But this time I think it was different. It wouldn't just be the government alone thinking about what it could do, but a recognition that we here in the north ourselves could take charge and deliver. When I say we, I don't just mean politicians or relying on public services, because we need to be absolutely clear that they themselves are simply an enabler of the Northern Powerhouse. But were it not alone, and too often in recent months, critics have started to use public sector reform and devolution as a byword for it. And that's wrong because it takes us away from the original concept that was to tackle an issue solely of the North's performance gap, which when measured by GVA per capita is averaging about 25% below the rest of England. That performance gap is made up of lower productivity and a higher unemployment rate, coupled with a skills gap, technology gap, poor transport connectivity, and that lack of agglomeration between the cities of the North. And Treasury analysis has shown us that if the North's economy grows in line with the UK average to 2030, instead of the lower rate experienced over the last 2 decades, economic output would be £37 billion higher in real terms. And that's what the Northern Powerhouse is about. And we shouldn't confuse that with public sector reform and devolution as an enabler. And it will be delivered by building on the assets that we have in the north of England: advanced manufacturing, health innovation, energy and digital industries, sectors that are our strength, where our capabilities are unique, where we can differentiate ourselves on the national and international stage. And that's why the Northern Powerhouse concept will sustain and endure into the future, because it's unarguable that the rationale for this to succeed is compelling to the point at which it becomes unstoppable. It's the reason why this term is beyond an election gimmick, because it would have been too easy for it to be dropped after the general election. But I think there's an insatiable appetite, not just from government, but from all of us here in this room to see it succeed. And I think it's testament, actually, the number of people that are here to hear about this debate is stimulating the interest in that Northern Powerhouse. And I don't think it's just measly words either. £235 million for the Sir Henry Royce Institute for Advanced Materials Research, based in Manchester, with centres in Leeds, Liverpool and Sheffield. Over £100 million for Cognitive Computing Research Centre in Warrington, £78 million for the factory, a £20 million innovation hub for ageing science in Newcastle, a new National College for Onshore Oil and Gas in Blackpool, with centres in Chester, Redcar and Cleveland. HS2, Transport for the North, a doubling of the number of northern cities to benefit from the government's superfast broadband programme. And in future, the private sector investments underway include £310 million in wind turbine technology in the Humber, £350 million at Liverpool 2 deep sea container port, £800 million here in Greater Manchester at Airport City, £150 million into Newcastle's marine and offshore sector, and £400 million into intermodal freight interchange in Doncaster. So you could say to me, maybe there are 2 points to argue against that these investments would have happened anyway, and secondly, that maybe those, and you might be right, partially right in that being the case, but also second, what we started to hear before, which is, well, what London and the South East gets it's a snippet of it, and it's not fair. We don't receive as much as anywhere else. But I think what our history shows us is that where we fail when we adopt a piecemeal, scattergun, uncoordinated approach to economic growth. And is it any wonder, therefore, that investment is concentrated into those parts that provide a solid evidence base to justify not just investment based on hard economic evidence, but also the moral, social aspect to it too. And that's our challenge that we have to overcome. We're located too closely together, and our own economic fortunes are intrinsically linked to one another, that if we don't recognise that this is an argument based on it's not fair, or one where parochialism is the order of the day, then Poorhouse we will have. But it doesn't have to be like that. And that's where it's the incumbent responsibility on all of us to choose our language carefully, to get behind a concept and recognise a long-term ambition to do what successive generations have been unable to achieve. Rome wasn't built in a day. A northern powerhouse we will not build overnight, but be built it will, if we can muster the collective strength of the North to use our assets and determination to make it happen. The risk lays where our appetite dwindles and the collective enthusiasm that has been sparked over the last 22 months flows away. And hopefully I've explained the rationale why that shouldn't happen, because that would be a disaster, a missed opportunity that throws away so much that has been achieved to date and says to our population and our businesses, you have to accept the lot that you start with. I don't think that's the north of England that we want to see in this country. I want us to be able to say to our young people today that if you grow up in the north, you can stay in the north, you can be successful and prosperous in the north. You don't have to go to London and the southeast for a great education or access to higher paid, more productive jobs, where actually your quality of life is so much poorer than here. There's so much that we can do and offer in the north of England if we collectively believe it. So it's easy for us to say that, but I want us to get to a point where this concept is different and it's radically backed up not just by government saying it wants a northern powerhouse, but recognises that it can't just deliver alone and that it must devolve power to enable that creativity and joined up decision making to take smarter decisions locally. And the argument's been put this evening that we could go quicker or we're not going far enough, but this is centuries of centralised government in this country that we're seeking to overcome. Centuries of centralisation, which in 22 months we've delivered more than we have in the decades that precede us. We cannot stop now if we're going to take advantage of that opportunity. And there was a little bit of an argument that was brought in then about public sector spending across the north of England and Greater Manchester. In other words, if you kick the councils whilst they're down, whilst they're meant to do this, then you'll never get anywhere. Well, had Jim been here, I'd randomly picked Oldham Council as an example to say that its spending power per dwelling at the end of this Parliament will still be just short of £2,000 per dwelling. And the council that normally gets picked in the south of England, Wokingham, is £1,700. So Oldham will still be receiving more than £300 per household to deliver its public services. And the issue, therefore, isn't about the money that's been spent across the north of England. We know that public sector services are costing more here, but what you spend it on. And that's what devolution is trying to address, because that excludes actually NHS funding and anything else. So we need to be able to have the ability to say that public sector spending across Greater Manchester is £27 billion a year. It was £27 billion a year in 2010. So the issue is about how we spend that money, not the amount of money that we have in the first place. And the final thing I just want to say is, with a northern powerhouse on the rise, with those enablers of skills and public services, we need 3 more ingredients to make this work. We need confidence, ambition, and connectivity. And we cannot just fall at the first hurdle, because to do so would be an injustice served to our population. The Northern Powerhouse, I think, is here, it's happening, and long may it continue. Thank you very much.